as you all know, I'm Mrs. Olette. I'm the Student Service Coordinator here. And I try to bring in speakers to kind of talk with you guys about future careers and what you could do and what your options are. So obviously if you hear you're interested in the medical field, hopefully. I have my dear friend Becky, Dr. Owen, here who's going to talk to you today. She is a doctor. She has worked in a hospital setting in a regular setting, and now she owns her own practice. And she's going to give you all of the information about what her college experience was and how she made her decisions and things like that, and how she got to where she is. And then you guys can ask any questions you want to ask her, because she's here to help you guys kind of start to make your path to your next career, to your future career. Sound good? All right, so with further ado, this is Dr. Owen.
Hi. So I'm glad to talk to you guys today. I'm Rebecca Owen. I'm a board-certified internal medicine physician and a board-certified geriatrician, which means that I take care of people 18 and over, and geriatrics is 65 and older. So I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and I kind of decided to think about what it would be like, what I would be thinking if I were where you guys are now going forward. What grade's everybody in?
Junior, sophomore.
Okay, so kind of the first, okay. So I'm gonna go back to Winding Brook Direct Primary Care is the name of my practice. I'm in here in town, and I have finally achieved my career dream. This is where I want to be. But getting here was not straightforward, okay? There was no going directly to where I am now. So there were a lot of twists and turns, and that's one of the reasons I chose Winding Brook for my name, plus I like water. So I'm gonna just bring you back to junior high, okay? In junior high, my big thing was whales. I loved whales. Loved everything about them. I loved to learn about them. I loved to talk about them. I was going to be a marine biologist. Okay, so, well, at least that's what I thought I was going to do. My job at the time was a paper route, so I really wasn't entirely sure what it meant, but I still enjoyed that. I think I went on an entirety of one whale watch on a very quiet day, and that's kind of what got me started on it. When I went into high school, I still thought that was where I was heading, okay? But, Winding Brook. One of the requirements was to take a foreign language, and I took German. We had a choice of German, Spanish, and French. And I learned that I actually had a really good knack for foreign languages. And by the end of my 4 years, I was taking German, Spanish, and I had started Japanese at the local community college. Wales don't speak German, Spanish, Japanese, or English. So I decided to move on, but I was still interested in biology. I found that very fascinating. When I was thinking about where to go next, I decided to do international business. One of the things that I did in high school was we had a German exchange program. I had the opportunity to spend 2 or 3 weeks over in Germany with a family over there, and their child had the opportunity to come spend 2 or 3 weeks with us. And it really kind of showed me there was a lot more to the world, and I thought, this is where it's at. I'm going to travel the world, okay? So I went to SUNY Albany. I grew up in upstate New York, and I went to SUNY Albany, the state school. They have a fantastic business school over there. International business, finance and marketing, that's where I was rolling, okay? Actually, I think I need to move a couple slides forward. They're not that exciting. I just introduced myself, but this kind of outlines the different paths I went through. But in business school, the first 2 years, I did my accounting courses, I did my corporate finance courses, I learned about marketing, I learned all the things, and it was okay. Nothing that I was like, yes, I can't wait to get up for this 8 o'clock class and go sit in a study hall or in a giant room for 3 hours. It was okay. I've always enjoyed community service, so I had joined a couple of community service organizations, but the one that kind of changed things entirely and started me on a very different path was when I decided that I needed to get out of my comfort zone and join the local ambulance corps. The college had a volunteer ambulance corps entirely run by students, and I saw a flyer one day and I went. They accepted me and I became what's a dispatcher. Many of you probably know kind of what a dispatcher does. This was kind of my introduction to the medical world. My job was to, when the campus police called and said, hey, we've got this going on, my job was to collect the crew from wherever they happened to be, because they weren't just sitting in the station. They might be in their dining hall, they might be in lecture, they might be in their dorm rooms. Get them to the office and get them into the ambulances to where they need to be, okay? It really was a fascinating job, the logistics and the coordination, okay? So it was again, good. I enjoyed it. But I'm not one of these people that wants to do the exact same thing every single day, and I don't like sitting in one spot, okay? And my whole shift was sitting in one room and then watching TV when there was nothing going on. So I decided I needed to get out there, and they offered an EMT class. It was totally volunteer. I was getting 0 credit for it, and I realized that I was spending all of my time learning about being an EMT, and realized that I wanted absolutely nothing to do besides pass my accounting courses, okay? Accounting was still good. I learned stuff, but it wasn't where my passion lay. So 2 years in, I had long conversations with my family, with my friends, with with everybody, and I decided that even though I was a marketing and finance major, that was not where my dream was. And I started on the path to become a physician. There's a lot of different requirements. I was already doing a biology minor, but I had to take an extra semester to finish all of the requirements. They were all great, except organic chemistry. That one gave me a run for my money, okay? But you're still gonna do it. So that was kind of where I started on the path of becoming a physician, but I didn't know what kind of physician I wanted to be. ER sounded fun. The emergency room, lots of activity, lots of different things, lots of busyness, but lots of downtime. Used to be, not anymore. Nephrology, working with the kidneys, sounds great. Cardiology, the heart, okay, maybe, but I really didn't know, okay? But I did know I wanted to work with the human, okay? A couple of other things that happened in college that kind of helped me go figure out where I wanted to be was some of my side jobs. College was my major job, passing, getting good grades. But I did retail. Has anybody here worked retail? Customer service, has anybody here done restaurant work, anything like, yep, okay. So I worked retail in the mall, okay, for 2 Christmas seasons. Have any of you ever been to the mall at Christmas time? Yeah, okay.
It's almost not a thing anymore.
I know, it's sad. People go online, I don't know what to do with that. But people get very stressed out around the Christmas season. And I did enjoy it because I got to help people find what they needed. And I learned some important lessons during that job, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. The other thing that I did was I was a resident aide. Okay, that was my 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. job. My retail job was from 3 p.m. until 8 p.m. That semester was long. But my job in that job was to help people in assisted living. They were older, they were debilitated, they had disabilities, and my job was to help them with the basics of living. Since I worked 11 to 7, most of them were already asleep, but if they woke up in the middle of the night, needed help getting to the restroom, that was me. In the morning, they needed help getting ready, that was me. Preparing breakfast, again, that's what we did. That, I think, sparked my love for the adult population in general and geriatrics, the 65 and older population. I really enjoyed that job. I wasn't sad to leave it because, not gonna lie, on the back half of the building, the corridor was always cold, and I'm pretty sure it was haunted, okay? No, well, okay, everybody who worked there at night believed it, but the day people, not so much. But, so, after I finished college, I spent 4.5 years. I had an extra 6 months before I could go to med school. And I had 2 jobs during that time. One, I worked for the New York State Department of Health for the AIDS Institute. I was an administrative assistant grade 3 or something, and did budgets all day. And the other was I was a phlebotomist. Okay, being a phlebotomist was interesting because you had to learn about anatomy and you had to learn how to draw blood. You had to deal with people who passed out when they had their bloods drawn. And the most important lesson I learned, and if you ever draw blood, this is like number one. If you're drawing blood and it starts spurting, you did not hit the vein. That's an artery. Put lots of pressure on it and stay there for a while, okay? Did that once. So those two jobs were kind of tided me over into med school. I went to med school in Long Island, New York College of Osteopathic Medicine. I had a lot of different choices, but that was the one that fit my philosophy. I believe that the whole person needs to be addressed when you're dealing with, your health. And that really did fit my philosophy. So the next 4 years were just basically going through med school. The first 2 years were classes, basically sitting in a large, very large lecture hall and learning more about biology, more about physiology, lots of tests. And then the next 2 years were clinicals. We didn't have one hospital that we went to when we were down in New York City area. I did my ER rotations at St. Barnabas in the Bronx, which is in just about the worst of the worst ERs that you can go to. I saw a lot, okay? Nobody ever is just standing on the corner minding their own business, I'm just saying. I did my internal medicine rotation at one of the wealthiest hospitals in New York City. So I got to see the whole gamut of various hospitals, and it was very eye-opening. I further narrowed my career down to internal medicine, adults. Then I went to residency. Residency is the next 3 years of a physician's life. You spend about 9,000 plus hours training. Yes, 9,000 hours, okay. I calculated it out one day. And we learned a lot. We saw different things, we talked about, and during that time, when you go to residency, you had to delineate where you're going to do pediatrics, family practice, where you're going to do internal medicine, where you're going to do surgery. But you start to try and figure out where to go, all right? So from those, whether are you going to stay in primary care or are you going to do specialties? People were encouraging me to be a specialist. They said, you do not want to be a primary care physician, you want to be a specialist. Do cardiology, it's an easier lifestyle. Do dermatology, there is no night call. Nobody calls you in the middle of the night. So whatever it was. But my heart was in primary care, okay? I just thrive on the different things that occur, and primary care. So I did a residency and then I continued on afterwards to do a geriatric fellowship. Theoretically, I am a specialist, but I do think it belongs in the primary care world, okay? Anybody have any so I'm kind of at the end of my residency and fellowship training. Does anybody have any questions? Any thoughts? I don't want to do all the talking.
Did any of the institutions that you work at help pay for med school or any of your schooling while you were there?
That's a good question. The question is, did any of the institutions help pay for med school? No, not for med school, but you do get paid as a resident, okay? It's not a tremendous amount, but you do get paid as a resident. I did not receive any financial support for med school, and it is a barrier that a lot of people do have to approach. But there are ways, so certain fellowships and residencies will help pay for it. So Ohio promised that if I stayed in the state for 5 years after graduation, that they would pay off my med school loans. But I was like, it's Ohio. I don't think I can do that. It's very flat. So I decided to stay in the area. What other questions?
Is anybody surprised, I've known her for a long time and I have no idea any of this, but that she didn't know right out of high school that she was going to be a doctor and she was going to go be a doctor and she was going to be in school for 12 years and then she was going to become a doctor and then that was it? That's very surprising to me. I feel like right now, as a high school student, you feel like you have to know and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my specialty and this is what I'm going to do and da-da-da. Does anybody feel that way? Do you feel better now that you've heard from her?
Does everybody know exactly what they're going to do for the rest of their lives? You do? Mm-hmm. Awesome. What's your plan?
I plan to go to school to become a veterinary technician.
Awesome.
And then for a work as a veterinary technician for a few years, and from there decide, do I want to go back to college to become a veterinarian, or do I want to stay as a vet tech?
I have to tell you, all the vet techs I run into are amazing with the animals. They're just so, they somehow communicate with them. They're really awesome. That's a good career. Veterinary is also an awesome career. There's a lot of, anyway, that's a very interesting, awesome career. Congratulations. Anybody else know exactly what they're going to do?
An ultrasound tech.
Awesome. Very important.
Because I've always liked x-rays. I looked them up for a while.
They're really fascinating to look at. The human body, when you look at them through imaging, it's a very abstract and
It's like art.
thank you. That's exactly it. It's art. But when I look at an ultrasound, I see a snowstorm. So, have to kind of, let somebody else knows what they're doing. Anybody else? Anybody? Yeah.
Be a brain surgeon.
A brain surgeon? A neurosurgeon? Excellent. What makes you want to go there?
I like the human brain.
You like the human brain? Okay. The human brain, I feel, is like the final frontier. We're just learning. It's it's awesome. The brain is awesome. Anybody else? Anybody not know where they're going in the rest of their life? Okay. Totally valid. So I'm going to step back to graduating and taking what I did with my jobs, okay? So when you graduate from med school, you become what's called a PGY1, postgraduate year 1, okay? And then it's 2, 3, 4, okay? Now I'm in postgraduate year like 22, something like that, 2022. And I've been through 4 separate practices, okay? I worked here in 2008 for 2 years at Huggins as a primary care physician. And then I went out to Massachusetts and worked with an entirely different population at a federally qualified healthcare center, where I worked with farm workers, where we could only see them between 7 o'clock and 8 or 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock at night, because they weren't able to get off the farm before then. And I worked with people who, because it was supported by the government, I worked with people who had absolutely no resources, and I worked with people with lots of resources. We learned how to manage and how to adjust. My third job was 8 years, and I worked down in Concord. And I was living up here at the time, so it's an hour drive. I think I listened to the entire radio station at least twice. So then the pandemic hit. Primary care is awesome. I'm just going to tell you that. I love primary care. But the pandemic hit. People, I don't know what happened, but people started fleeing the healthcare center. We didn't have nurses anymore. We didn't have medical assistants. We didn't have receptionists. People had to go home to take care of their children because they were out of school and they couldn't work. And life became very challenging. Without your support, you can't do your job. And it became very challenging. And it became me, I became a widget. Just take Dr. Owen out, move her over there, and take Dr. Smith and put them in. Dr. Smith can see patient number 1, even though patient number 1 has never seen Dr. Smith. And that's what primary care was turning into. And, it was not my dream. I wanted to connect with my patients. I wanted to know them, to guide them. I wanted to be there with the best of times so they could share the happiness. I wanted to sit with them in the worst of times. And the best way you can do that is knowing who they are. That's when I that's when I decided I'm going to open my own practice. And it's now been 17 months in, and it has been wonderful because I have put to use so many different aspects of what I've learned. Although back when I was doing finance and marketing, we were still using paper ledgers, and QuickBooks had just come on the scene. My knowledge of accounting came into play. As an EMT, I learned how to take care of emergencies. I learned how to be calm and collected in an emergency. Absolutely important. As an EMT, the first thing you're taught is survey the scene, okay? Don't just look at the emergency, look at it all, okay? Because if you miss over here, the traffic, the traffic coming barreling at you, gonna be in trouble. You never want to add another victim. So you have to take a deep breath and look around. What is the whole scene, and then narrow it down. You can like cry later and have a breakdown, totally okay, afterwards, okay? I learned how to take blood pressures. I learned how to talk to people. As a resident aide, I learned that people deserve and want dignity and respect. even when they can no longer do the most basic of things, they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. In retail, there's a lot of emotions in retail, especially around Christmas time, but that's where I started to learn that people, when they're trying to get their needs met, and they're not always doing it in the most calm, rational way, but if you look past the fact that, and look to say, this person is just trying to get their needs met, how can I do that and look past the surface? It becomes a lot easier to deal with somebody when you're frustrated or when they're stressed out. And that's something I do every day. In my practice, I believe to the core of my being that people want to be healthy. They want to live amazing lives. They want to be the best they can. Sometimes they're not getting there, and I have to wonder why. Are they stressed out and too much going on to be able to exercise regularly? Do they have side effects from their medications? Are they unable to get to the pharmacy? And then you can help them, okay? As a paper route person, I started to learn, this is a key thing, it never hurts to ask. The worst you can get is no. So, that was like, during one of our famous nor'easters when I still had to deliver the newspapers, and I asked my dad to kind of drive along with me. And sometimes he said yes, sometimes he said, no, it's good, it's a good growing experience. But you can always ask, okay? And each of my jobs has taught me something, but the one thing is I never settled. I wasn't looking for good enough, I guess. I was looking for, this is good. This is where I want to be. And my job, my career, my business, my practice will still continue to grow and change. But the couple of takeaways, that I really think are important is every experience you have for the rest of eternity and for past, learn something. You're being taught something. You get to choose how you use that information, okay? Treat people with respect, kindness, and dignity. That doesn't mean you let them run over you. It doesn't mean you take advantage. It just means that there are usually ways to approach things calm and collected and firmly and politely. Please and thank you actually does go a long way, okay? And self-care, everybody hears that self-care thing. It is super important. In residency, we would work 16 hours a day and then have an 8-hour time off between those shifts, okay? Residency is not but it's a fascinating growing time. But you have to take care of yourself. You have to sleep. You have to eat healthy. You have to exercise. You have to enjoy your people around you. But ultimately, there's so much amazing things out there. The healthcare field is awesome. There's a lot of other awesome fields. I'm sure I would have been happy with being a marine biologist, except for getting seasick and the fact that fish smell bad. But look for what makes you happy. What questions can I answer for people? I think I forgot to do the rest of my slides. Here you can see them. Life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself, so live the life you imagined. And work with people. You're gonna always have to work with people. And that was it. Anybody have any questions? Do I have to bribe with chocolate? I brought chocolate.
So you took the medical exam to get into the grad school, right?
Oh yes.
How was that?
You take a lot of exams going through med school, residency, fellowship, and to become a board certified physician. It is the first step. You have to prepare for it. You have to learn about it. You have to be ready for it. Oh, the question was, how was it taking the MCAT? It's hard and it's scary because you feel like everything is hinging on that exam. It's not. A lot is, but it's just the first step in many.
Did you ever have times where you felt like you couldn't do it, and how did you get through that?
The question is, did I ever feel like I couldn't do it, whatever it was, and how did I get through it? Absolutely. I remember this one day in residency. It had been a very long shift, and I was talking to my mom on the phone. And I was saying, this is too hard, I'm exhausted, I can't do it, right? And my mom said to me, she said, when was the last time you actually ate a healthy meal? And I'm like, I had some cheese and crackers in the lounge the other day. And she said, okay, when was the last time you actually slept? I said, well, I got a nap. She said, go to bed. Eat something, go to bed. Call me back later. That's self-care. You know, the whole, things will look better in the morning was important for me. That was one of the things, is when I was feeling like I can't do it anymore, I realized that I needed to work on myself. I needed to restore something in myself if this was the dream I wanted to pursue. It also helps when you're going through all this, because some of the stuff really wasn't easy. It helps to know where you're going and why. You know, I knew where I was going. When I was starting my own business, I had 4 pictures posted on in my kitchen. One showing a stormy sea, which is where I felt I was in my last job. I felt like it was just chaos. And then I had a picture of the stormy sea with a lifeboat. And then I had a picture of that boat rowing towards a tropical cove. It was probably winter at the time when I was thinking about this. And then I had a picture of that tropical cove with the beautiful, you know, beautiful sand, palm trees, all that. And I imagined myself going from there to there. So when I took a step forward, I was like, I'm not over there anymore. I'm not in the stormy sea. I'm in the lifeboat. I am saving myself. I am moving forward. And then as I took the next step, I'm like, it feels long, but we're getting there. And then the 3rd step. I'm not quite at the 4th step where it's like I can sit back and relax, but I can tell you I'm not going to stay there long, because that is not an exciting place to be. Yeah, hang out on the beach for a little bit, you know, relax, soak up some rays with sunscreen, please. But then continue. I want to get back in the rowboat to continue growing and changing and creating, because we never hit perfection. Perfection is we just don't. There's always room to improve and change and grow. Does that answer your question a little bit? Yep.
Is there anything like a patient has said to you specifically that you think is probably going to stick with you for like a long time?
Absolutely. Can I think of an example right now? I can't. But oftentimes it's like it's not even necessarily what they say to me, but how they manage something. Actually, I had a gentleman who was facing a very severe cancer, and he faced it with such amazing grace and just you know, forward movement. Even during his treatment, he was getting out and walking, he was getting out and moving, he was doing what he needed to do, even in the darkest of times. And I was impressed with his drive to heal and to get better. And it really you know, that stuck with me. You know, and there's lots of other things over the years, but that's the best one at the moment.
Well, before the bell rings, I just want everybody to thank Mrs. Owen for coming. If you do have extra questions, you can stay. I'll give you a pass to your next class. But everybody, please say thank you. Thank you.
So thanks, guys, for listening. If you have any questions, I have my cards here. Please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to talk to you guys. Mrs. Ouellette will have some of my cards if you have to scoot out and get to class.